Whoops. We are live with the Hustle Podcast. I am Gunspix. Just kidding. It is DadBodd's podcast here on a wonderful Thirsty Thursday. Hope you guys are drinking and watching us whenever you want to watch us. And I am joined with two wonderful guests tonight. It is the Hustle Podcast Takeover. Yes, to my left, if you're watching on YouTube, I have Chris Thurston, a.k.a. CTBets16 on Twitter. And to my right, if you're watching, Adam Trigger, a.k.a. Top Flight SI. I will start with Mr. CTBets. How you doing today?
Guns, I'm doing good. I'm not used to you coming in. Usually I like you starting off and your guns are blazing and you're shooting everybody. I love that. So next time I'm on, make sure you start the show like that. I'm doing great, Guns. It's always a pleasure to be on with you. And, of course, my boy Trig. Looking forward to Wild Card Weekend and talking shop with you boys.
Yes, and to my right, also Trig is on the I don't know what to call it, the Trig Tour of 2022-2023. I was like, he just basically just goes around everything Mac or Mac. It's I always see that you're in a different location. So where are you today, Mr. Adam Trigger?
So back home today, but I'll be on my way to Kansas next week. Going with Kelly in Vegas to Kansas State, Kansas, which is awesome. Friend Kai McKeon from 3 Man Weave is coming, and then we're going to Missouri, Arkansas the next night. Kai's a Missouri grad. So a couple power. Yeah, I have been hitting some of the smaller schools. Guns, I decided at the beginning of this season that my goal is to go to every single Division I NCAA venue. I'm giving myself, it's going to take me a decade probably. If I can hit like 30 a year, actually probably more. I think, CT, what do we got? Like 360 Division I college basketballs?
Actually, it's funny. 350.
It's 350. By 10 years from now, the way they let these guys in, it could be 400. I heard Lemoyne is probably going to go D1 the other day. They're Syracuse based. It feels like there's like 3 new ones every year. So who knows? But yeah, I want to see every single college hoop venue, and I'm just going to start knocking them off one by one. So CT and I are going to Baylor later this year. I mean, I've been there, but can't wait to go back. We'll just try to hit 25 to 30 a year. I'm at 11 so far, and I'll be at 13 after next week.
Wow. Have you been to Marist yet? Because Marist is on.
I have been to Marist, actually. That's one I've been to a number. Marist is like an hour and a half south of Albany. I went to Siena, so I've been to that. I've been there a bunch of times, but I actually went earlier this year and watched Marist against Columbia Guns. It might be the worst basketball game I've ever witnessed in person. The final score was 52-39. It was an atrocious game.
It's like watching girls high school basketball if you're getting to that point. We have a lot to talk about. We'll get to college basketball at the near the end of the show, but we talk about NFL Wild Card Weekend that's going to be coming up. We'll be talking, giving out some plays here from all of us on the show. But I just kind of want to recap all thoughts about just in general, just the college football championship. I know it was boring for most, but if anybody followed my video play on that one, and I think everybody on the table was collectively on the Georgia Bulldogs. It felt like the easiest win in my life. I had a 4-unit play on it. And I just I've been fading TCU like all season long. The only time I ever took them was against Michigan, another team that I also faded. Is there any thought? I'll pass to Chris on this first. Any thoughts about the college football championship? I mean, did you really expect it to be this bad?
Right. So it's always nice ending on a high note, right, Gun? So I was with you. I closed out strong. I had TCU over Michigan in the semis, and had Ohio State over Georgia, which cashed. Obviously, we were getting 7 points there, and then in the national championship, I slammed the Dogs like you did. And did I think it was going to be as out of a control as it was? No. I think everybody's a liar who says that they thought it, that it was going to be 65-7. I did think they were going to blow them out, though. I just did not see that coming. And you saw it in Kirby's eyes before, right on the field. I think the exact words he used were aggression, and he looked like he was going to kill somebody. And we've all heard his pregame speech now. And then we saw what they did to them on the field. And it was exactly what I said on all my shows. It's just going to be men against boys, the SEC versus the Big 12. I said it was going to be a lot like the Sugar Bowl, Alabama versus Kansas State. And then we saw what the backup quarterback said for TCU after the game. I can't remember his name, but he was the one who started the season. And then Max Duggan beat him out in week two or three. He came in for mop-up duty, played a few, 5-6 minutes, and he said that Georgia is in a different tier than us. And he's darn right. They are in an absolute different tier, and I totally thought that and knew that going into that game. I gave all the credit in the world to Sonny Dykes for what he did with that Horned Frog team, coming in there, taking over for Gary Patterson in his first year. Not easy at all. 200-1. You could have got a ticket on them in August. If you had that in your pocket, you made some money because you could have hedged off very nicely. So congrats to you. I don't know how many of you are out there, but it was a nice way to close out. Guns, Stetson Bennett, what a job he did, man. From a kid who was not recruited at all, walk on, wasn't expected to be the starter last year. And man, Kirby Smart, he's taking over college football right now. David Pollack said it best. Nick Saban looked like he was going to kill him, but he's not wrong.
Yeah, I was doing my prep for next season just to kind of check to see who the quarterback is. They have another 5-star in the waiting. I think we saw a little bit of him in the fourth quarter. Yeah, he's got that team is building a dynasty, as they say. I'll pass it to Adam Trigger. What were your thoughts on the national championship?
I really don't have a ton to add. And CT sold himself short a little bit there because he said that Georgia was going to absolutely murder TCU, and that's exactly what happened. So, I mean, right, like who could call 65, whatever
right.
The final ended up being. I think I turned the game off halfway through the third quarter. But like, yeah, I mean, I cashed with Georgia. It was a nice end of the season. I don't really have a ton to add. It was a dominant performance from Georgia. It's how the book sort of booked to need it, of course. There's no question, like, the books took a pretty big position on Georgia in that game. Chris and I talked about it before the game. It's always good to be on. Doesn't always mean you're going to win, but it's always nice to be, on the side that they're sort of booking to need, and it couldn't have went any better. They just absolutely steamrolled. No problem.
Hey, Guns, one more thing to add on that. Our good friend Mark Zeno, who's been on a ton of shows, Sports Grid Radio, on the Hustle every once in a while. He was on Sports Grid one morning before the national championship, and I was listening to it. I heard him, he gave a breakdown on TCU, and that was his pick. And Trig and I and him are in a group text, and I immediately texted him. I'm like, Zeno, I love you. You are on completely the wrong side right now. And I think I know the exact words I use because now Trig and I use them all the time. I said that Georgia is going to blast them. And you need to get off TCU right now. And ever since then, that's our terminology we've been using. Blast. I think Zeno got off of them. But yeah, now Trig got me a little more fired up. It was a great way to end the season. You're only as good as your last winner, and that's the way I wanted to leave off college football.
I think I used the term murder. That was the term that I used in my video. I was like, this is going to be an absolute murder statistically. So you're sitting around 3 guys college football wise, we are nothing but just winners all around. And Mr. Trigg needs to get that mentality in his head for college basketball because he is going to absolutely be after this show. So that's it for the college football talk. We've talked about it enough. We will smoke a cigar, drink a little bit of bourbon after that game. I felt that was laughable. My best bet of the year. But we have a full weekend of NFL wildcard weekend. So let's get in some NFL talk time, shall we?
Go, go, go!
And we're going to start with the first game that is on the board here. We have the Seahawks traveling down to San Francisco 49ers, 4:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Saturday to kick us off. Line sitting right now at 9.5, 9, depending on what books you buy them at. The over and under on this one is 42. I will start with CT Bets. Do you have any looks on this game, or should we just move right along?
Guns, I made a very, very small play on Seattle plus 10. When the line first opened up, I thought that was a little too high, and I grabbed the points there. I've gone back and forth on this game. Not a strong opinion. We saw what the weather looks like now. You and I were talking backstage about this before we came on. Looks like it's going to be a very rainy game, kind of a slop fest. Look for Christian McCaffrey and Kenneth Walker, both to get a ton of carries. You said it, it kind of scares you. Rookie quarterback Brock Purdy. Yeah, same. But man, Kyle Shanahan makes it so easy, right? The system is so easy. The weapons he has, it's crazy. We saw what he's done since he stepped in for Jimmy G. He's done a really good job. San Fran won both meetings this year. I think Seattle has a good chance to keep it close, and I think the weather is going to play to Seattle's advantage. Trig, it reminds me a little bit about week one, right? And week one is week one of the NFL. It knocked Trig and I out of one of our entries in Survivor when the Chicago Bears beat the San Francisco 49ers. Now, granted, that's week one. Everybody's just getting going there. Niners had a really tough time in the rain there. Granted, they didn't have Christian McCaffrey then. Debo wasn't healthy. But I think Seattle and Pete Carroll could dial up a pretty good game plan here and contain this and stay within the number. I expect San Francisco to pull this game out. Again, Guns, very small play for me here.
Yeah, I can't take you off of that one. Mr. Trigger, you have any thoughts on this game?
Well, I mean, Chris said it. Like, Seattle's chance is Pete Carroll. Like, that's going to be their ticket to hanging close, is that the fact that they have a guy in Pete Carroll that can put a game plan together. He sees the 49ers on an annual basis, so like they should be like I trust Pete Carroll to keep it close. Like, that would be what I'd be betting on there, because if you're just betting personnel, it could get ugly. Like, that's like it should get ugly based on paper. I haven't been high on the Seahawks this season at all, but in this situation, with getting as many points as you're getting in a playoff game, one-off situation, I guess I'm willing to think that Pete Carroll can keep that closer. That would be like what would potentially put me on Seattle there. Less the matchup and more the fact that I like Pete Carroll enough to game plan to keep it within 10.
Yeah, I know there's a lot of trends out there about this line could exceed the double-digit rank. We don't know if that's going to hit before kickoff, but there is 70% ATS rate on the favorite.
Guys, I'll throw this out. I don't think it will. I know some sharp people that have come in at 10. I bet if it keeps hitting 10 or
it's a key
10,
number. It's a key number for sure.
It'll get bet off of it. I think if you saw 10.5, it'd get snapped up pretty quick. That's my sort of thought there.
And you have to understand about every one of those situations in those marks. It was like most of those guys didn't have a rookie quarterback that was drafted in the 7th round in that spot as well. So take that with a grain of salt here. I'm actually looking at the total on this one. If I actually look at the outcomes for Seattle in the last 4 games, 33 points overall in their games that they played in the last 4 games. Also, you got to look at San Francisco. Their average outcomes in the last 4 games have hit 53. But 37 was against Washington, 37 against the Raiders, 38 versus Arizona. Why I'm saying that is I think this team is due for a little bit of regression, especially versus a divisional opponent they're playing for the 3rd time. Now you have San Francisco total outcomes versus divisional opponents, which I'm getting to, 41 points total were those outcomes. Now you have Seattle on the other side versus divisional opponents, 39 points. So the line's looking pretty sharp here. So if you can get it above that 41, it's probably going to hit that average. But when you look at San Francisco versus Seattle, both totals overall hit 34 points exactly in both contests. So I'm actually liking the under in this one. The totals right now sitting at 42. Better buy it now. I think it's going to probably drop. I know there's some weather issues over there in San Francisco too. Or Santa Clara, I should say. So I like the under. I don't think this is something that I want to touch as far as the spread is concerned. But I think that's probably a good spot, especially with a rookie quarterback that hasn't played a playoff game. Probably some nerves on that side, and same side with Seattle. I don't think their quarterback either has he played a playoff game, or is he just basically watched on the sidelines? I don't know about that one, but
well, Guns, I know there's some respected money on the under. I can tell you that like it's a fact. So I don't hate it.
Then I feel good about that one. So that's probably the lean I'll take. All right, moving on to the next game here. We have the Chargers versus the Jaguars. A revisit from week 3. I'm gonna switch this around and start with Adam Trigger on this one. Do you have any thoughts on this game?
Well, I'm gonna leave the bulk of this one to CT. My thought is, here's my thought, Guns. If the Chargers lose this game, I'm gonna be with Chris this weekend, and I know this is his best bet. And if the Chargers lose this game, our night's not gonna end pretty. That's my thought. So I'll kick it over to him and let him tell you what he thinks about this one. Because I know it's his top player.
I know when I have a big bet on a game, I don't like to sit with friends because they will judge me and probably not be friends with me after that one. But I'll pass it to CT. What's going on? What do you think about this game?
Yeah, there's not too many people that I like to watch games with when I have a big bet, Guns, but Trig is one that is allowed to watch with me when I do. Yeah, like Trig said, this is my best bet. I gave this out on all my shows this week, and I played the Chargers at a pick, right? So for the sake of my show last night on the Hustle, I gave out the Chargers money line, which was minus 130. It's ticked up a little bit. It's minus 140 right now. Shop around a little bit if you're going to tail me. But let's start with this first, right? So should this Jags even really be in this game? I was on the Titans last week, plus 6.5. Had a big bet on them on the money line as well. They were completely outcoached, completely outplayed. Caught a very lucky break on a very late fumble strip 6 there. But hey, that's football. I'm not going to sit here and say what if this, what if that. So we're going to move on. We go back to week 3 here, Guns, and Trig pointed this out to me, and I totally kind of forgot about this. So week 3 they played. Jags blow them out, okay? Week 2, the Chargers played the Chiefs in Thursday Night Football, and Justin Herbert gets very, very banged up. He was pretty much ruled out for week 3 versus the Jaguars, and then miraculously he decides that he's going to play. I think day of that Sunday, like a couple hours before. Okay, so he decides to play. He's banged up. Keenan Allen, he doesn't play. And Slater, their best left tackle, ends up getting hurt in that game. That's week 3. You can't take much into that. You can't account for much into that, okay? The Jags, they're going to have a very, very tough time getting to Herbert. They're 29th in adjusted sack rate, right? They just have 35 sacks this year. And I think Herbert's going to have a lot of time to find his weapons, and that's what he's going to do. Austin Eckler, he had a season low in touches in week 3. Look for him to be way more involved and get a lot of touches. And we know how explosive he could be. Trevor Lawrence, man, I don't have to say it. Everybody knows he did not look very good last week. You could tell that toe is bothering him. He's having trouble moving the ball. They got off to a very, very slow start versus the Titans. They're not going to be able to afford to do that versus the Bolts. The Bolts will take big time advantage of that. And we got some pretty big news out of the Charger camp. And I know that the coaching advantage is to Doug Peterson. I don't deny that. Staley, he makes a big mistake last week. He leaves the starters in the second half. The big wideout, Mike Williams, he ends up getting hurt. It looks fortunately for the Chargers, it looks like the big boy is going to be able to go. That's going to be a shot in the arm for them here. And this is just too much talent, Guns, on this Bolts team. Herbert's going to be very, very great in the NFL. He's going to be elite. I think we could all agree on that. I still don't know about Trevor Lawrence here. You could tell he was a little nervous last week in his first playoff game. Granted, this is Justin Herbert's first playoff game as well. Totally understand that. Talent is here, Guns. I expect the Chargers to win by double digits here on Saturday night.
Yeah, I mean, you have to consider the revenge spot on this one. They lost 38-10. I can't take you off of this pick at all. I think this is going to be one of those games that, the Jags have won, 5-6 games in a row. Even against the Tennessee game, they lost the net yardage battle that with minus 90 net yards for that game, and they still pulled out the win. Against a backup quarterback, for that matter, in Dobbs. So maybe this Jags team is kind of limping into the situation as well. It's not. I don't have any leans on this one at all. I was going to lean the Jags, but I think Chris might have talked me out of it, and I might be going Chargers. But we'll see. I'll probably wait on this one. We have some time. That game starts at Saturday, 8:15 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Before we get to the Sunday slate, I want to make sure we properly give some love to our sponsor.
This podcast is sponsored by Viva Tequila Seltzers.
That's right. This podcast is sponsored by Viva Tequila Seltzers. Viva Tequila Seltzers is a refreshing and drinkable hard seltzer, 88 calories, 0 carbs, 0 sugar, and 4.5 ABV. Viva is the perfect drink for your post-game celebrations as it was created with the active lifestyle in mind. Viva flavors their tequila because flavor is the spice of life, and they like their life with a little bit of a kick, as we like to live our lives. Viva flavors perfectly with their artisanal Blanco tequila for a subtle and refreshing drink. Their belief is to live long, live well, and live it up. Hashtag Viva Up. And make sure you check them out on Twitter at Viva Seltzers. Back to the show, boys. Back to the show. Now we're going to hit into the Sunday slate. A game that I don't know if I'll probably not even watch. We have the Dolphins versus the Bills. Would have been a pretty interesting matchup if I can't say his last name. Tua Tagovailoa, blah, 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 blah. If he was playing, it'd be interesting. But we have the Bills, very highly motivated, and always play well in these wild card matchups. I'm going to start with CT Bets this time. Any thoughts in this game, or should we just move on to the next one?
Guns, at first when I got the news that Tua was going to go, I hopped on the Fins plus 10, and then I was very fortunate enough, I think when the news broke yesterday morning, I still had a book that had Bills minus 10. I got off it completely. I'm going to lose the juice there. I do not want to be involved at all. This is a game the week before Christmas Eve. Trigg had a huge play on the Dolphins. He went to the game. I was on the Dolphins with him. I agree with you. It could have been a really good game if Tua was pulling the trigger. Lions gotten out of control. Want nothing to do with this game. This is a complete pass for me.
Yeah, I actually I got some information that Tua was going to play from a credible source that I dearly trust, and he did apologize to me when the news came out that Tua wasn't going to play and the line jumped. So I had to cash out of that bet. It cost me a little bit of money, but I will take the cash out. and not just ride the bet out. Adam, what do you think?
I've got some thoughts on this one. So first of all, if Tua was playing, this probably would have been my biggest bet of the weekend. I would have absolutely loved the Dolphins here if Tua was playing. As Chris referenced, I cashed a big bet in that game. I was at that game. I felt like the Dolphins were the better team in that game. I felt like they deserved to win. And had they not been so concerned, had the Dolphins' sideline not been so concerned with getting hit by snowballs for the first half, which they were way too worried about, it's just snow, it's fine, they probably would have won that game. As you know, Josh Allen had a big game, and it came down to a late field goal, which the Bills snuck out and won. Now, because, listen, it's still a standalone game, people still want an opinion. I do think there's a number. I think that number is probably 14. That you have to consider the Dolphins as a viable option. And if you take okay, Tua is a big deal, right? It's the reason we all kind of just said, if Tua was playing, well, there's still quite a few redeeming qualities here for the Dolphins in this matchup. One, I'm just going to go back to last week, right? The Bills, 2 kick returns, they weren't very good against the Patriots. 2 kick returns and 2 absurd throws by Josh Allen. They didn't run it particularly well. They weren't really moving the chains against the Patriots. And the Dolphins defensively are going to be as good as New England, in my opinion. I thought they matched up really well with the Bills. Obviously, Allen's going to be able to move it through the air a little bit, but the Dolphins are not just going to get steamrolled by that Bills offense. At least in my opinion, they won't. So it really comes down to the Dolphins with Skylar Thompson. And Guns, it reminds me a lot of Taylor Heineke 3 years ago. It was the COVID year when he ended up getting. Remember, this wasn't Taylor Heineke we know now. This was St. Louis Battlehawks Taylor Heineke that had very limited NFL exposure. And no one gave the Commanders a chance, or the football team, wherever the hell they were at that time. And they hung around and gave the future Super Bowl champion Bucks a scare. They covered the number. So I think if this gets up to 14, the Dolphins have enough redeeming qualities up and down that roster, in my opinion, where they could give the Bills a game. They're not going to be intimidated about playing in Buffalo. They just played in Buffalo in a snowstorm on Saturday night. That stadium was as drunk as I've seen it, Guns. They were turned all the way up. This is in a lesser spot at 1 o'clock. I think if it hits 14, you got to consider the Dolphins.
Yeah, I think this is one of those games that you can kind of wait till the start to see if you actually hit that 14. But I will say the Taylor Heineke game, the quote-unquote Redskins at the time were playing at home. So it's a whole different atmosphere when you're playing on the road in Buffalo. But, hey, these Dolphins have played them twice. They won the first game. They played very competitively in the second game. We'll see if Skylar Thompson can step up in this game. I have no official play on this one. This might be a wait and see, but if that gets above a 14, I don't know if I can step away from that and make a little bit of a bet, maybe 1 unit bet on the Dolphins. Moving on to, I think we have differing opinions on this game. The 4:30 game on Sunday, 2 teams that, if you've watched the NFL show with me, with the Oddsfellow and the Shark, 2 teams that I've faded consistently. The New York Giants going on the road to Bank of America Stadium, Minneapolis, Minnesota, to meet the Vikings, which is a team that is got 4 losses. I don't know why they don't have more. I will start with CT on this one. Any thoughts on this game?
Yeah, I made this game Vikings minus 3.5 Guns. So I'm on the Vikings here. We saw Christmas Eve. These 2 teams met. Giants probably should have won this game Christmas Eve. They didn't. Now it's a road playoff game, which is going to be a bigger challenge for the Big Blue. This is going to be the Giants' first playoff game since 2016. DadBodd has done a great job with this team, but I do think the party comes to an end here on the road this Sunday. As much as I said this last night on the Hustle, as much as I don't trust Kirk Cousins, I trust Daniel Jones much less, who's going to be pulling the trigger for the Big Blue and making his first career playoff start. Since 2022, QBs making their first playoff start. They've gone 2002. I apologize. Starters have gone 18-36 straight up and 17-36-1 ATS. I think Kirk Cousins and Justin Jefferson will be able to make some explosive plays as always here. And I think as bad as the Vikings D has been recently, I think they're going to be a lot better. And I think it's a good matchup for the Vikings to draw in wild card weekend. So I'm taking my chances with Kirk and company. Vikings -3 for me.
Trig, what do you think?
I haven't done anything in this game yet. There's no question that the Giants are as square of a dog as you're going to find. So, I don't really have a ton to add. I haven't done much with this one, and I'm going to kind of wait. I haven't jumped in with the Vikings, but it's not my style to like join the masses on a dog like the Giants. So probably Vikings are pass.
Well, I guess for me, like Huey Lewis in the News once said, it's hip to be square, and I guess I'm going to be a square on this one. I like the Giants. They check too many boxes for me on this one. They're coming off a loss to their divisional opponent, to the Eagles. They were playing backups in that game. They actually played really competitive against the Eagles, who had something to play for in that game. I do like the motivational factor in that one, and also Minnesota coming off a big win versus, against a Chicago team that was just ready to tank and get that first pick in the draft. The key to this game, in my opinion, is going to be the run game. I think when you actually look at the DVOA for this one, the Giants are 7th in DVOA running the ball. They average 4.9 yards per carry, where Minnesota is ranked 19th in DVOA, stopping the run. They give up 4.5 yards per carry. And also, if you want to go into the passing offense for the New York Giants, not too bad versus DVOA, 10th in the league. In that regard, where the Minnesota Vikings have been desecrated versus the pass, giving up 26. They're ranked 26 in DVOA, giving up 266 yards per game to their opponents and 66.7 pass completion rate. Strength of schedule is a big key component to this one. Minnesota's stats are so bad. Minnesota faced the 18th ranked toughest schedule this season, while the Giants, of course, they're playing in the NFC East, so they're going to get a little bit of favoritism with that regard. Ranked 3rd toughest schedule that they face. So statistically, the Giants just seem to be the better path here. And also, you got to look at the revenge factor in here. The Giants lost to them 27-24 already this season in the same spot. On Christmas Eve, even though the Giants did win the net yard battle in that game, plus 96 net yards, but the difference in the game was -2 turnover ratio in that spot. So I think the Giants have the edge here. I think they're going to focus a little bit on the run. I do think Daniel Jones will kind of turn things around, get him that big win. And I have not liked Minnesota all season long, and they have frustrated me to all end, and at least at the back half of the season, I was able to fade them and make some money. So give me Minnesota. I'm sorry, give me the Giants +3. I almost caught myself there, and I don't mind a little bit of a sprinkle on the money line as well. I think the Giants pulled this out, no problem. Give me the Giants all day long. All right, let's move on to another game that is going to have to deal with backup quarterback issues. And also the defending AFC champions in Cincinnati. The Ravens going on the road and playing back-to-back road games versus the Bengals. Sunday, 8:15, the night game. Cincinnati sitting here at -9.5. It might have moved to -10 at this point. It just keeps moving, with the news that Lamar Jackson was going to play. Total sitting here at 40.5 last time I checked. I'll start with you, Trig. What do you think about this one?
Okay, so I have a take. I don't think the Ravens and the Dolphins are both not going to cover. One of them is going to get it done. And it feels, listen, everyone is on the Bengals right now. And I've always said this in regards to the Ravens. That's a system as much as it is like it's more of a system. We've seen guys plug in and be okay in the past, right? Like we've seen Jackson not playing is not a new thing. We've seen that before, and we've seen guys come in and get a job done. So I think that this, like, okay, so you basically have two games, Dolphins, Bills, Bengals, Ravens, that are both probably going to continue to get out of hand in terms of the money's just going to come in on the Bills to a certain extent. The money's just going to come in on the Bengals to a point. And I would say that I think I'd look to fade both of those things because I don't know which one. Maybe both of them get it done. But the only way I could play here is to try to jump in at the peak with the Ravens and hope that the system, being Harbaugh, the coaching staff, what they've put in place, is good enough to be competitive without their quarterback. And so I would lean toward the Ravens. At whatever that peak number is, I'd probably lean toward the Ravens.
I know the Bengals have been a public darling. They are covering at a high, consistent rate, frustrating anybody that's trying to be sharp and fading them. That line is still moving up. I'll pass it to CT. What are your thoughts on this game?
I think Trigg said it perfectly. I totally agree with him. I don't think that both the Bills and the Bengals will cover. One of these dogs is going to cover. I'm totally with him on that. And as we're sitting here, yeah, I'm seeing some tens pop, which is wild. I completely agree with what Trigg says. Harbaugh has a system, and those guys, like, this is still the NFL. Like, these are NFL players. Like, these guys buy into the system with Harbaugh. They love Harbaugh. They play hard for Harbaugh all the time. Doesn't matter who's pulling the trigger here. Now, that being said, we know Lamar's not playing. Huntley missed practice. He was at practice yesterday, doesn't throw any balls. From what I heard today, he's at practice, kind of threw a few balls for the cameras. I do like Huntley and the Ravens if Huntley's pulling the trigger. It's another story if Anthony Brown is pulling the trigger. But, man, if this line keeps going up, the only thing I did, Guns, so the same night on Tuesday night, I got the same info that you got, right? I thought I got info that Tua was playing, and I got info that Lamar was out. So what I did immediately was I open teased the Bengals. So I have the Bengals -0.5 open for a few shekels, right? What I'm probably going to do is come back here on the Ravens. I'm waiting. This line isn't going to go down. This thing is only going up. The Bengals have been a public darling, just like you said. They've been covering week after week. Joe Cool smoking the cigar, champs of the North, king of the North, blah, blah, blah. Okay? Totally with Trig on this one. I'm probably going to get involved at some point on the Ravens plus the points.
I completely agree. I think this is something you can wait like an hour before kickoff, and you can see where the line is going to be going. This is a line you can monitor all Sunday and see if you can get a 10. I think anything above a 10 is perfect spot to go and take the Ravens. Ravens still have a good defense, by the way. Adding Roquan Smith to that lineup has made them exceptionally better. I mean, they're one of the fastest teams in the league. Actually, I think they are the fastest.
They are the fastest, I believe. Yeah.
Right. So I'm actually like looking at the total right now. This is a pick that I can kind of give out right now. I got him at 42. That line has dropped to 40.5. I think that's more predicated on the news that Lamar Jackson is officially not playing. But you actually look at the average outcomes in these games. The Baltimore average outcomes this season, 40 points per game. But you have to understand, a lot of that is more on when Lamar was playing. But you actually look at the last 4 games, they only averaged 28 points per game totals in those games. But that is a testament to the defense for the Baltimore Ravens and also how bad the offense has gotten for Baltimore as well. Cincinnati, on the other hand, they've played 46 points per game in their overall this season. But in the last 4 games, only 33 points per game overall in the games that they played in the last 4 weeks. They did last week beat the they beat the Ravens 27-16. That was a 43-point total on a 39.5 point line. That line's dropping down to past the 40. I can tell you that right now. It's already been dropping. I did get it at 42. However, I'd say like immediately you better buy that line. I don't think it's going to be going up from here. Unless the Sharps want to buy it on key numbers like 38 or 37 or something like that. But I don't think it's going to drop that far. I don't think it's going to go past 39. So if you can get it at a 40 right now, just take it. I like the under in this game. Also, I lean Ravens, but I'd say wait till it gets past the 9.5, and get into the double digits. All right, last game on the board before we get into a little bit of college basketball talk. The Monday night football game. Dun, 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 bum, 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 bum.
So
it
weird.
Ends off. Well, we have the extra game now. We have Monday night. This is great. We have.
I just remember last year. I remember last year, Chris being like, "My dad would fucking hate this." Yeah, you can't have a playoff game.
Oh, wild card weekend for a reason.
Didn't we get like one year? We got the Rams and the Cardinals, and that game was just
that was last year.
That was that.
Was that last year?
Yeah,
It's only last year.
Yeah,
it's only been one, right? This is only the second year.
That's correct.
Yeah.
So it basically got their coach fired and probably their quarterback not having a job. So we got the Cowboys and the Bucks. This line is sitting at Dallas minus 2.5 right now. Over and under, and this one's 45.5. I don't know if it's gone back to the 3 yet. Tom Brady is an underdog, 4-0 against the spread. I'll start with you, CT. Any thoughts on this one?
Yeah, I mean, I haven't talked to before we did the show, Guns, I think you said that you like the Cowboys. I think you're outside of you, and I think Treg agrees with me. We'll find out. I haven't talked to anybody that likes the boys. And
Terry Thomas likes the boys in the chat. There he is.
There we go.
There he is.
Terry, you're a smart man. I completely agree. I'm on the boys here. And I get it. Like the Tom Brady factor, the underdog factor. He's beaten he's 7-0 against the Cowboys in his career. I love the Dallas D Guns, and I know they haven't been great to close out the year here, but I think we're going to see that Dallas Cowboys team that we saw on Christmas Eve versus the Eagles, which was my best bet that week. I think that team's going to show up here. I throw out week 18 versus the Commanders. I don't put too much thought into week 18 games. That's not the team we're going to see here. This Dallas defense, they're strong. They're stout. They have takeaways. They have a guy called Micah Parsons. Not sure if you guys ever heard from him. He's probably the best most explosive and athletic linebacker in the league. And I trust CD Lamb and Tony Pollard here way more than I trust Tom Brady, Mike Evans, and Chris Godwin. We've seen what this Bucs team did at the beginning of the year. Granted, yeah, they've been better to close the year out. They've been better, I guess. I think that Micah Parsons and the Dallas D could shut down Leonard Fournette if they try and run him big time, and they'll help Fournette, and the Bucs will be in for a big rude awakening there, and they're going to have to throw the ball, and Tom's going to make some mistakes. This is coming from the biggest Patriot fan and Tom Brady fan there is. He's going to make some mistakes, and the Dallas D is going to have some absolute big time pressure on him. So I'm going with Mike McCarthy and the boys to get it done on the road here, Monday Night Football, and Tom Brady is going to be going packing home on Wild Card Weekend.
Yeah, I'm with you on this one. I think Dallas gets out of that playoff funk. They're not playing the 49ers here, folks. They're playing the Tampa Bay Bucs that are on a down skid in what is essentially Tom Brady's last year. I'm going to pass it to Trig on this one. What are your thoughts on the Monday Night Football game?
Couldn't have said it better. I have nothing else to add. CT hit every point, and I'll throw something out there just to, I got to add something. I wouldn't be surprised if the Cowboys ended up in the Super Bowl. That's a hot take right there. I don't think that the Cowboys, listen, everyone's Eagles, 49ers, that's all I hear.
Agreed.
If there was going to be one other team to kind of throw their hat in the ring in the NFC, in my opinion, it's the Cowboys for reasons that CT has stated. A lot of this is getting hot at the right time. I think they're going to smash the Bucks. I think the Bucks. I think everyone is. I think the books have booked it this way to like need the Cowboys to clear out all those teasers that are going to run to the Bucks. But listen, beating Brady and winning that game, the wonders that could do for confidence. We've seen it in the past. The teams that play on the first week, well, obviously now the only team not playing on the first weekend is the Eagles. But I think the Cowboys are like a big time dark horse to get to a Super Bowl. It's the one year you're not hearing. Every year the Cowboys get to the playoffs, someone's got them in the Super Bowl. I haven't heard anyone talking about the Cowboys getting there, and I think they could be a little bit of a dark horse in the NFC.
You heard it here first, a DadBodd exclusive.
Coming to you live from the DadBodd Studios. This is a DadBodd exclusive.
Put your future tickets in now. Dallas is making the Super Bowl per Adam Trigger. There we go, folks. But yeah, I like Dallas in this one as well. I think they're just lopsided as far as their ranking is concerned. Dallas is getting undervalued in this spot, which is weird to say. That seems like a hubcap on a tractor when you say Dallas is underrated, actually, in any game. But they're ranked defensively 5th against the run in DVOA, 3rd against the pass in DVOA, and they're ranked number 2 overall. It's like, don't forget that this Dallas team has a good defense. Now, when you look at the Tampa side offensively, I mean, they're not great. They're not doing anything. They're 30th in DVOA against the run, 11th in the pass, 16th overall. So, I mean, this team it's very lopsided, and I don't want to even get into the defense versus the offense. I think Dak Prescott gets over the hump here and gets the wiggles out and gets beats the arguably the GOAT of all GOATs in the playoffs. But, you know, a Billy Goat at that matter. He's 45 years old here. So I think this is going to be a pure Dallas drubbing here on a Monday night game. And I think the NFL will question if we should have added that extra game to the slate because if there's any indication what happened last year, I think the Cardinals were playing at home in that playoff game. I might be wrong on that one. It doesn't make any sense, but I think they were when they got beat on Monday night. But at any rate, I like the Cowboys. Well, that's going to wrap it up for Wild Card Weekend takes. Going to the chat, Kurt Gray says Dallas money line, and he also likes the Vikings like CT. So let's get into a little bit of college basketball. All right, I'm going to pass it to Adam because we've had some chats this morning through text. I know you're dealing with a cold streak. That's why you came on and to heat up. And this is the place to heat up because, my God, everybody that comes on this show comes out red hot. And I'm going to pass it to you. What are your thoughts about your cold streak and your adjustments of how you're going to deal with that moving forward?
So, I mean, this has really been, this really dates back to last year. And it's something I've noticed, but it didn't all really kind of hit me until I really last couple of days haven't been good. Got off to a great start of the week with Georgia on Monday, and then a couple tough days of college hoop where couldn't get on the right side of a late finish. Nothing has gone my way. And I really just, had to sit there and say, man, what are you doing wrong? Because this goes back to last year. Everyone I know that sort of like tuned in did not have a good college basketball season, and they're not doing well this year. And my theory on this, Guns, is that if you really watch and bet the market in football and in baseball, you've probably done pretty well. Okay, like if you're tuned into the betting market in football and you're on the sharper side, you're on the books that the side that the books are shading to need. baseball as well was great for dogs this year that fit that criteria. You've done pretty well. In college basketball, it just hasn't been the case. And I think the reason for that, I just don't think the books are like needing they're not positioning themselves to need college hoop as much, right? Like there's so many games, and outside of like one that comes to mind was like CT and I were at Mohegan Sun last year and Duke was playing North Carolina, right? Like that's such a high profile game that might get shaded in one way or another because of the volume. Baylor, Kansas, like some, that what the big ones are, right? Like with Michigan, Wisconsin in a primetime spot, like stuff like that. Outside of that, which is like we'll call 90% of the games, maybe 95% of the games when you consider how many teams there are in college basketball, they're just not like the books are not really shading it terribly. And I think that I know I've done it where it's like the quote unquote sharp side, or like Creighton comes to mind last night, right? Like, why are we betting against Xavier at home with how good they've been, right? Like, what like other than the fact that we become trained to think that Creighton's like the sharp play, like let's oppose, like there's some public players on Xavier, so like we need to oppose that, and it just simply has not really worked. And so for me, the change I've made personally, I'm not saying that you need to start backing every public favorite, but there's literally 300, we've already addressed it, 350 Division I teams, or whatever, what have you, that, and if you're being selective, like you don't need to bet those games, or like, maybe like I may jump in now with a side that, I had talked myself off of because of that in the past. Now, that's, so for me personally, I'm going to start targeting the teams that like I've seen 11 games in 11 different arenas. I mean, I've got like probably get to 25 by the end of the year. I've decided to target those teams that I've seen play more than, just because you got to pare down the board somehow. And I just think that I've ignored some of these spots and some of these teams. Like, for example, I saw Buffalo play Ohio last week. I told, like, I know my Brian Power, Wager Talk handicapper, he's an Ohio grad. I said Ohio's going to win that game against Ball State. They're just they were probably the more impressive team against Buffalo. They didn't get the win, and I didn't give it out, and I didn't bet it, and sure enough, they won. And it's like, so for me, I've addressed this, and I think Chris is going to agree with me. I got to get off like last night. High Point, like stuff like that it's just like there's this sharp sort of like, it's clearly like a sharper side. Cal Baptist was sharper last night, like stuff like that, and get back to just evaluating what I see and being willing to bet on that, because I'm fairly certain the people are doing that are the ones winning in college basketball right now.
I think you can use that same terminology, and I completely agree with you. Like I did that change myself this season, and I tried it with college football, and I stopped. I said, I'm going to stop looking at the market. It's like, I'm going to go with the numbers.
Yeah.
I'm going to go with the trend. I was like, I'm going to go where these teams are right now. And it's like, I don't care if it's public or it's sharp or whatever. It's like, I'm going to buy the lines on Tuesday, Wednesday. I'm going to get the best of the number, and I'm just going to let fall as they may. I ended up doubling my performance from last year doing it that way, instead of like I felt like I was looking at the markets too much, and I wasn't focusing so much on the teams, the stats, and where these teams are in the last like 5 game window. It's like,
so
it's fine.
I want to jump in, and then I want Chris to comment on it. I still think college football, you need to be pretty clued into the market. I think, like, I feel like I crushed college football
certain
this year.
For certain games where there's high ticket volume. I think
yes. That's a good point. That's a good point, because I forget, like, in college football, you can there's so many games that you're probably right. Like Conference USA, Sun Belt, MAC, like, I would agree with you, Guns. But you're right. There's going to be those spots where I think we have become good, like Chris, myself, Kelly, basically like my crew that I talk to on a daily basis, we become good at targeting the spots that are going to be a need, shaded in a certain direction, and being on the side of the book in those. It's just in college basketball, I think we're like, it's like the definition of insanity, right? Like it's not working, but you keep doing it. And it took like going 0-3 in last night, and not to mention like going 0-3, but seeing like so many of those spots like just blow up. Arkansas, Creighton, Virginia Tech, like all in the same night, to be like, we gotta look at this a little differently here.
Yeah, what Adam's saying is perfect. So if Maris is playing Podunk U, what I'm just calling out is like, it's not the public that's betting these games, okay? They're betting Duke, North Carolina. They're betting all the Big 12 games that are on Saturday. That's where the money's the volume's going. It's like, but when you're dealing with a low ticket count and you're seeing 95% of the money go and bets going one way, it's like, it doesn't mean you're being contrarian is the smart play. It just means that the people that understand these conferences are the smart ones are betting these games. CT, I'll pass it to you. Is like any thoughts on that Trig just said or
yeah, Guns. I completely agree with Trig. I'm going to give an example in a second, but I just figured I give a quick pick here because it goes in 2 minutes here. And so real quick, I'm on USC -3. Starts in 2 minutes here. Against the Colorado Buffaloes. The Buffs have been literally the weirdest and least predictable team in literally out of all 350 Division I college Division I basketball teams, right? They beat a Tennessee team that possibly could be a 1 seed, and then by 12 points. Then they lose to Grambling and UMass, and most recently the Cal Bears, right? They're on a 2-game win streak. They win 2 at home. USC's coming off 2 straight losses on the road, and their most recent loss was to UCLA, and they had a huge second half versus UCLA, and they only end up losing 60-58. I was on UCLA that game, I think laying 8, and they were blasting them in the first half. They showed a lot of resilience, and they came back, fought hard. I think Boogie Ellis is going to be a lot better tonight. He only scored 10 points last game. He was 0 for 3 from deep. And I like the Trojans here to win pretty comfortably, Guns. So I'm on USC for what that's worth. Example of what Trig was talking about real quick, Guns, is I texted Trig yesterday, right? And I was looking at the splits, and that's something I tend to do. I was looking at the Baylor-West Virginia game, right? And the split scared the shit out of me. Everybody was on Baylor, right? And Baylor's getting 1.5. Everybody's on Baylor. Line didn't move at all. And I'm like, you know what? I'm overthinking this thing. Like, I know this team. I know both of these teams. I've seen them play all the time. I texted Trig word for word. I said, Baylor's going to win tonight. I think this is exactly what the doctor ordered for them to get out of Waco, play another struggling team in the Big 12. And I said, we weren't this far off on this team. It's impossible you and I were this far off. They have the best backcourt in the country. And so I'm like, I'm throwing everything out the window. I know these two teams. And I bet Baylor. I bet them on the money line. And I just knew they were going to win that game. And they covered almost wire to wire. They gave the lead really late. But it was a wire to wire cover, Guns. So I'm with Trig. I like his new motto. I'm with it.
I took Baylor too, and I didn't put it in my Slack as my posted plays, but I took it personally because of the fact that I felt like I was a public square.
Sure.
And I got to stop doing that.
Yep.
It's like, because when you actually look at West Virginia, like they haven't covered a game in like what, 8 or 9 games or something like that. They're playing terrible.
Can't hit the ocean.
Yeah. So line. Yeah. Go ahead. Yep. I'm sorry, Trey. Go ahead.
I just want to jump in quick because that is something we talked about on the Hustle last night, and I think like we've trained like if like sharp betting and winning betting, and it works in baseball and football. It's like and other sports. Those are the ones I handicap, so I relate back to them. But like there's this theory of like buying low and you know, like you want to buy low on certain teams. You don't want to take bad number or you know, bet numbers that are clearly shaded, and all that's true, but I think, and you want to talk about like it getting magnified, college hoops a little bit more momentum than other sports, in my opinion. I don't know if it's because of the frequency of the games, of the frequency of the games with 20-year-old kids, 19-year-old kids. But you want to talk about like in the Big 12 specifically, I think momentum is going to be big this year. Like, I'd almost be willing to bet against Baylor. I haven't even looked to see what Baylor is, next time out, whoever they play. But, like, it's going to be, if you're losing multiple games in the Big 12 this year, I think it's going to be hard to get out of that funk, only because you've got 9 other teams that are all just loaded teams. But then you could be Kansas State right now. Are they this good? I don't know. They were projected to finish last, but they're riding that wave, and they, they're in a 1-point game. I had Oklahoma State last night, 1-point game with like 2 minutes to go, and they found a way because things are going
hot.
well for them right now.
Right.
And the other comment, and the other comment I wanted to make is CT's bet tonight is literally an illustration of this. There's sharp nibbling going on Colorado all day. Colorado is a small dog, is a sharp side here. Yep. I also disagree with it. I think that Colorado team, I wrote about the Pac-12 coming into the year. I said this team is awful. And I mean, typically you go back historically, Colorado's typically a good fade outside of Boulder. They've managed to cover a few on the road this year. So yeah, I mean, just throw it out. I totally agree with CT's handicap. And I think this is a scenario where we would have gotten sort of distracted by that in the past. But now it's just like he's just going to trust his instincts here on USC. And I totally agree with him.
And
go ahead.
Sorry, I don't want to cut you off there. I apologize. But I wanted to give Trig is officially off the schneid.
Let's go.
We just cashed Youngstown State. The only game that I bet before USC.
I told you I was aligned on that one. Ladies and gentlemen, we have ourselves
texted me, and he said, I got to give him props. He said, CT, I know this team. I've seen them play live in person, and they are going to mash tonight. They are the play. So
very fast, high pace, and can score a lot of points. It was -1.5. Well, it was perfect.
Yep.
And this is an example. Like, okay, so very first night of the basketball season, I went out to Buffalo and I went and watched Youngstown State play Canisius. And I left that game and I was and I didn't have a frame of reference yet, right? Because it's the first night. I sat there the whole game. I think it was like 93 to 82 or something like that. And I was like, man, if I didn't know better, I would have, if I didn't see the logo on the front of the jersey, I would have thought I was watching an A10, like a team from a big conference playing ball. The next week, I went to UNLV Dayton out in Vegas. I went to BYU Missouri State out in Provo. And I said, you know what? The best team I've seen, like Youngstown State's still the most impressive team I've watched play in person. Oh, I'm 11 games in. I've seen like 20 different teams play. They're still, and granted, I've seen a lot of mid-majors, but like they're still one of the most impressive teams that I've seen play in person. And I looked at Detroit. I knew they might be. I didn't know if Liddell would play. I knew they might be missing. Like they haven't really had their whole team, and it's like that's what I'm talking about. I would have thrown that out because they probably had 80% of the tickets and the money. It wasn't like a sharp, whatever by any means, but it's like I just felt like they were the better team. And we were getting him at a pick, and they pretty much controlled. Like I saw CT looking up, he was watching him try to choke it away at the end. I could read his eyes.
That's what I was doing.
They held it.
I watched the end.
That's what I mean about public versus sharp. It's like it might have been 80% of the tickets, but there was only like 20 guys that ever
right
Youngstown State.
Right, because that's not no book is out there trying to be like, hey, we gotta take a position on Youngstown State tonight. And right. Guns, now that I'm still, and I'll circle Chris back in here, but because I kind of want to get his opinion on this too. I have a second play tonight. It's a 4% play at Wager Talk. It's the one I have up for sale, so don't feel the need to go over there. I'm going to give it to you here for free. It goes about 20 minutes from now. I love BYU tonight. I love BYU getting points.
Yep. I'm on the same boat. I made it one of my top plays tonight.
And I'm gonna quit. And I'm curious to see what you guys, what your response is to this. And I just want to make sure. Are we still at 6.5? Is that what we're still?
I got 6.5. 6. I haven't looked at the line recently.
Yeah, I think it's still 6.5.
I'll tell you right now. Yep, 6.5 across the board.
So here's why I like BYU so much. I went to be one of BYU's first games of the season. They played Missouri State out in Provo, Utah. First off, that was a non-conference game in November. There was 12,500 people there, okay? They get a great turnout regardless. You know how many people are going to be at the Marriott Center tonight? I can guarantee you all 19,000 seats are going to be filled for this game. And let me tell you something. That is one of the biggest on-campus arenas. That place is crazy. Like, you're down. Like, if you get down near the court and you look up, it's kind of just like an abyss, right? It's very intimidating just from sitting there as a fan. Like, it's like, wow. And tonight, it's going to be completely packed. If you go back to, like, the games in the past when they play Gonzaga, they always sell it out. The last time they beat Gonzaga was actually right before the pandemic, February 2020, I believe it was, in that building, a sellout crowd, and they got the win there. But BYU, when I left that game, I called Chris, actually. I was driving from Provo to Salt Lake to get on a plane to come home. And I said, Chris, BYU's a disaster. They have no ball handler. This is a team that we should be betting against. Like, they're a disaster. They're going to be horrible, at least in the early going. And I was kind of right. They lost 6 games. They lost to South Dakota. I think maybe Utah Valley they lost to in there, who was actually a pretty good team. But they made a change about 10 games ago or so. They moved Rudy Williams to the bench, and they put this freshman, Dellen Hall, in at the point guard position. Now, is he a stud point guard? No. But he's a serviceable point guard, and it's not Williams playing out of position trying to handle the ball, which he was really struggling with. And since they've done that, they've won 8 of 9. They have wins over Creighton, Utah. Their one loss, listen, the WCC is very deep. They slipped up on the road against Loyola Marymount. That's not a big deal. Loyola Marymount can play. They've got scorers, so I don't really fault them for that. But I will say that BYU is a different team from the team that lost all those games early in the season. And Gonzaga, in my opinion, is still a fade. They failed to cover the last 2 games on the road in the West Coast Conference. They were fortunate to beat San Francisco. They didn't cover against Santa Clara, and they only won by 5. And the other road game that they played this year, coincidentally, was the same night that I was out in Utah. When I texted CT Betts and he forgot to give it out on the hustle, I said that they are going to get murdered by Texas down in Austin. And sure enough, Texas ran them out by 20. It was more like 40 at one point. That game was a complete blowout. So I still think Gonzaga is overvalued. I think they have a WCC loss coming to them in their future. It very well could be tonight. So that's why I love the BYU Cougars plus 6.5.
Trig gets 1 win and his balls grow 3 times larger.
They're back. They're back, Guns.
They're back. I like you said it all about BYU. I completely agree, but I also look at line correlations as well. I know Gonzaga has owned BYU historically. If you actually look at just Gonzaga covering the spread, I think this might be the first time in forever that I've seen a line where BYU is not a double-digit dog going against Gonzaga. So, I mean, this kind of has a little bit of a shift factor. I know they haven't played each other this year, but I think with Timmy's like the major weapon for that team. I always recognize like Gonzaga having a really strong backcourt that's really kind of carried them along the way. But I don't know. This Gonzaga team doesn't feel the same at all. So, yeah, I completely agree with this one. Any other thoughts, CT, or did Trig say it all? I kind of want to get into a little bit of Friday leans if possible. So,
no, go ahead. Fire.
So, I mean, I wanted to get into Saturday. I can't get into Saturday because I have no idea what the lines are going to be.
Yeah.
I would say for Saturday, fade Kentucky and fade West Virginia and just continue to do that until they end up covering their spread. And I will say this about I was fading Louisville till I died. I can't do that anymore. So Louisville is going to be off my list for a little bit. But I do have a couple leans. I don't know if you guys looked at some of the Friday games.
I got it up right now, but go ahead, Gus.
Yeah.
Take the
so
shot,
the one there's 2 that stick out to me, and I was kind of looking at that before the show. Kent State's going against Ohio. I lean Kent State. Kent State has just been red hot lately, and I think this is a perfect spot to just go take Kent State. They're favored minus 3.5 on the road versus Ohio. And I think this just this is just a team that is really strong in the MAC right now. And Ohio, I think I don't know where the market's going. I don't really care anymore. I just want to continue riding the Kent State train till it crashes. So that's probably a lean that I have. Also, there was another game that I liked on this one as well. I think it might have been. No, I'm not going to take that one. I lean VCU, but I'm kind of hesitant on this one because Dayton's just been red hot. Trig, do you got any thoughts on the Friday card at all, or?
Yeah, no, Guns, do you know where I was on Tuesday? I was in Kent, Ohio at Kent State Toledo, and I went on Twitter at halftime, and I said, I cannot believe that Kent State is trailing in this game because they were so clearly the better team in the first half. I gave out Kent State -3 second half, and they clamped down on a very, very good Toledo team. I saw Ohio play Buffalo in Buffalo last week. I did think that they were a little bit sleepy on the road. I expected them to be better, and they actually lost another game. I think they lost, but they ended up bouncing back and winning at home. Ohio's a little bit better at home, so I'll have to kind of evaluate that one a little bit more. But Kent State's a very good team. I probably would have a hard time talking you off of that unless I find some additional information on that one. I think those right now are. I don't know if I want to bet against either of those teams right now, to be honest.
Yeah, I'm not saying I bet anything yet. I would just look at the card. I'm like, these are teams that if I don't get there, I'm either going to take them or I'm going to pass. That's pretty much where I'm at with them.
I'll rattle off the Friday features a bunch of teams I've seen, like actually been at the game, seen in person. Cornell.
Yeah, this is your wheelhouse. This is
my wheelhouse because it's a lot of.
When is the Trig concert tour gonna come out? Like the Up in Smoke, it's like Trig Up in Smoke tour when he has like all the cities that he goes down. I want
maybe. Well,
we gotta go to. We gotta set it up where we go to a game down by where Guns is.
Oh yeah, I know. Listen, dude, it's actually crazy.
Maryland game. How far?
It's actually crazy.
30 minutes. I can get to College Park probably 35 minutes.
To College Park.
Yeah. No, dude, Chris, I got invited to Albuquerque, New Mexico, Corvallis. They specifically said bring CT Betts to Corvallis with me. Like, so if we don't get you this year, we'll get to you next year, or we'll get you the year after. I plan on doing this like for like I said, till I get to them all. But yeah, like shout out to the people that have invited me places. I know Ben Carey, who's he's on. I forget what site he's on. He's out in Colorado. He said, "Hey, come out. We'll go to Northern Colorado." I think that's where he went. So it's cool. I wanna hit games with as many people as possible. I'm gonna try to get down to Florida at some point. Me, Drew Martin.
I'm near Georgetown too. I'm probably 35 from Georgetown.
Yeah, like that's. Listen, you're also near we don't discriminate here. You're near a lot of good mid majors. Towson's down there. Like there's a lot of good ones.
Yep. Towson's
American is having a good season.
Yep.
A lot of good ones down there. Real quick on the Friday slate, Cornell. I went to Cornell last Friday. They were so clearly better than Penn, and I'll have to dig deeper into Yale. But I'll tell you what, teams that turned over are going to have a hard time with Cornell. They were able to play at a much higher intensity than Penn the entire game, and they really wore them down. It didn't matter that Penn has easily the best player in the Ivy League on their roster. It didn't matter. Dingle couldn't do anything against Cornell's pressure defense. So Cornell's certainly a team that I'd want to play on going forward. Marist playing Canisius. I've seen both of these teams in person this year. Marist is catching points there. I don't know if I agree with that. I think Marist is probably the better team. They're certainly less impressive, but they have a coach in John Dunn who used to coach at St. Peter's, and that guy is just like, he gets his teams to defend their ass off. If you get Marist catching 5.5, I mean that's like any normal team catching like 8 or 9, because those games are typically low scoring. And Canisius will go. They don't have a ton of shot makers. They'll go into modes where they if they're not hitting, they aren't great. Iona plays Fairfield. Fairfield, I probably was the least impressed with them. They have real ball handling issues. They don't have a ton of scoring, and Iona just got killed by Quinnipiac. This might be a get right spot for Iona where they just just demolish someone, and that someone could very well be Fairfield. Siena Niagara. Siena's kind of due for a loss, guys. As much as I hate, like they're in first place in the MAC right now, 5-0. But I'll tell you what, historically, Siena struggles with the Buffalo trip. Going out to Buffalo is tough for Siena. They gets them every single year. Either Canisius or Niagara get them in one of the Buffalo road games. They play at Niagara tomorrow night. I actually
short
think
line too, -1.5.
I know.
That's
Well,
kind of sketchy.
I would not be surprised if Niagara goes off as a favorite there, and I would not at all be surprised if Niagara wins. CT, do you know who Niagara's coach is?
No.
It's Greg
yeah.
Paulus.
Yeah, I did know the case.
Who I like.
Greg Paulus.
Right.
Right, buddy.
Yeah. And who's done a tremendous job. He took that job from so that was like Patrick Beeline's job before he I think needed to go to rehab or whatnot. But anyway, Paulus got the job 2 weeks before the season, and he's done really good job with nothing there. Niagara is having a great season so far. I think he's an awesome coach. He'll have that team ready to play. That might be one of my favorite ones for tomorrow. Sad as I am to say that, as being a Siena alum, and the fact that I root for them, very difficult spot for Siena tomorrow night. Guns, you talked about Dayton. I saw them out in Vegas play UNLV. They were shorthanded. I've noticed that Dayton has been far improved as well, much improved as well. I don't think you're wrong about liking VCU there, though. I think that they're starting to get a little bit inflated. I still think there's some cracks in that Dayton team where they maybe shouldn't be laying over a touchdown. And that's about it, just at a quick glance. I'll turn it over to CT, see if he's got anything else.
I have nothing for tomorrow, Guns, but one that really sticks out to me for Saturday, and I'm excited to see what you guys think of this one, and that's Kansas State at TCU. And we saw what TCU did last night. They had a huge lead versus Texas. They blow that game. Really tough place to play. Texas shoots the lights out in the second half, right? The game before that, they run into red hot Iowa State. They lose that game by 2. Outside of that, this TCU team has been phenomenal. Very impressed with the way that Miles Jr. and Miller has been playing, right? Then we go to the other hand, Guns and Trig, Kansas State. They were projected to lose. Was it lose every single game in the Big 12, Trig, or win one? Lose every single
no,
one.
I mean, I think Ken Palm's projections or whoever, they had them being the underdog or losing every single game.
Losing every single game predicted to in the Big 12, right? And now Jerome Tang comes in, who is the assistant coach and right-hand man for Scott Drew forever at Baylor, Guns. He's done a great job with this Wildcats team, right? They're rattling off win after win. Just beat Oklahoma State. Then they beat Baylor at Baylor. Beat Texas at Texas. Actually, didn't beat Texas at Texas. They throttled Texas at Texas. I like TCU in this spot, Trig. It's Saturday at 2:00. I say the number is TCU -2. That's my prediction. The line is not out, but I'm pretty fairly certain, Guns. I'm going to be on the Horned Frogs on Saturday afternoon.
I don't disagree with that, Chris. Listen, here's the thing with TCU. Okay, so I mean, Kansas, I talked about the momentum and how well they've played. I don't think even Kel, who's loving this Kansas State run, Kelly would agree that they're probably overvalued at this point. But TCU played a lot of their non-conference schedule without guys. Miles missed a few games. Lampkin, I think, is it Lampkin, the big guy? He was out for at least a game. So TCU, is now just really getting everyone healthy, everyone in, all at the same time, right? Because not only gotta remember, guy misses a game or two, but if it's a whole bunch of guys missing a game or two here and there, that means how many games did they actually have everyone where they all played together? That's a big deal, especially when you're trying to build continuity as a team, especially in this day and age when all these teams change every year. So I would say TCU. I think Chris has kind of nailed that. I think TCU is probably a team you're going to want to look to back going forward. They got a nice cover. They got it done last night against Texas. right? Like they I think they covered that number.
Yeah, they
Did Texas
covered.
yeah.
They
And,
covered. They just blew a big lead, and they're very
Blew a
well
big lead.
coached, Trig, too. Jamie
Right.
Dixon, great coach.
Yeah. I think and let's not, I'm going to it yet. The look ahead to Kansas has to be considered there. Like that
Monday night, right?
it's Tuesday night.
Tuesday,
Tickets were impossible to get for that game. Like if there is no way you're not going to be able to convince me that Kansas State isn't already like
Looking at
it has to
at
be
home in Manhattan. Yeah.
Yep.
Guns,
It
I
has
like
to be.
these two a lot on Saturday.
Great look, guys. Man, what a show. We went an hour and 20 minutes. We had 7 to 14 guys watching us live. If this is the first time you watched us, make sure you like and subscribe to the DadBodd's YouTube channel. I'll give you a couple of my leans right now, unofficial. I think I like Tennessee on Saturday, and I like Oklahoma. Fading two terrible teams that are covering the spread. We'll see if I get there with the number. But I appreciate everybody that has gone into the chat and followed us along on the ride. And make sure you check out the DadBodd's YouTube channel. We're actually doing a very special show on Saturday, 2 p.m. to talk about the NFL wild card. It'll be me, Oddsfellow, and the Shark. And then we're also doing a Sunday show to wrap up the wild card slate. It's going to be absolutely electric, and we're going to cash a bunch of tickets along the way. So till next time, to the DadBodd's episode number 107. Thank you, Adam Trigger. Thank you, CT Bets. We will have you on again. It was an absolute electric show, and we'll see you next time. Peace.